When I was preparing for this sermon, I remembered a story of when I was a kid playing with neighborhood kids. And I didn't remember the specifics of the argument, but I remember I had said something, and a friend didn't believe me. And I remember being kind of sneering back at them, like, "Don't be such a doubting Thomas." And but as an adult, I have kind of a soft spot for Thomas. Thomas the twin, the Bible calls him, but we don't call him that. For us, he's always doubting Thomas. We call him this with maybe a little bit of judgment, a little bit of shame, but I don't think it's fair to poor Thomas. Or rather, maybe we can reframe the way we think about doubt. In our gospel today, the risen Christ has already appeared to the disciples, but Thomas wasn't there. And when the other disciples tell him that they've seen Jesus, Thomas responds honestly. "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and my hand in his side, I will not believe." And I've heard people talk about this statement throughout the years as a rejection of his faith or of God, of Jesus' ministry. But I don't see Thomas rejecting anything. He simply states his need. He wanted evidence. He wanted to be sure. And who can blame him? Keep in mind, this is Thomas, who's already witnessed numerous miracles. Jesus turning water into wine, healing someone who's blind. Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. And in spite of witnessing all of those miracles and more, even then, Thomas was doubtful that Jesus himself had risen after his crucifixion. And we have this habit of treating doubt like it is a problem to be cured with just enough faith. Like doubt is evidence of no faith. Doubt is a sign that something is wrong, that thoughts of doubt are bad and shouldn't be fed. That doubts are even something that can keep us from our faith. Well, Jesus had a habit of surrounding himself with normal people. People who boast, who gatekeep, people who fall asleep and get tired, people who hope, people who get scared, and people who believe in the power of death. And Thomas was a normal person who had heard of Jesus' crucifixion and death, which he believed, and then heard of Jesus' resurrection, which was too much to be true. So after Thomas says this statement, a week goes by, and Jesus appears. And what does he say in response to Thomas' expression of doubt? He says, "Get behind me, Satan." No. He says, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" No. Jesus meets Thomas in his doubt. He shows up. He says, "Here, you need to feel? Feel. You need to see? Here I am." By expressing his doubt, Thomas has a more profound personal experience of Jesus that actually fuels his faith. He doesn't even need to touch anymore. Just the sight of Jesus is enough. He makes one of the most profound confessions in the gospel. He says, "My Lord and my God." Now, I don't think Thomas was rejecting Jesus with his doubt. I think he wanted to find a way to believe. When the Gospel of John was written, this could have been left out. It says in there that other stories of miracles weren't included. So why would a passage where one of Jesus' best friends who saw a bunch of miracles when he needed proof to believe, why would you include that if the passage states that it was written so that you may come to believe that Jesus is the Messiah? It was included because we are human. And this story shows us the core of being human, that we are imperfect, and we try to understand the world around us, including big things like life and death, and we only have our senses to do so. And to believe in something like a Messiah that can't be squashed by a mighty empire, nor silenced by even death, can feel too audacious to believe in. We can relate to the doubt of Thomas because we too need real, tangible ways to see and touch Christ in this world. And this is important because the deepest faith in the gospel comes from the disciple who doubted most openly. Thomas's belief didn't happen despite his doubt. His belief came because of his doubt. So your questions, your struggles, your uncertainty, these aren't barriers to faith. They are the very fertile soil in which your faith can bloom. Because what is faith really? Faith is trusting even when we don't have all the pieces. Faith is holding on in the tension between what we see and what we hope for. Anne Lamott wrote, "The opposite of faith isn't doubt. It is certainty." Because when we are certain of what we believe, we stop believing and we start knowing. And when we know already, we are not curious anymore. We all have our doubts. Some of us may be feeling it right now. Maybe we've faced suffering that's shaken our faith. Maybe we've experienced silence when we've longed for answers. Maybe we're just searching for hope in a world that feels less hopeful by the day. And if you're like me, maybe you skim the news headlines looking for just one small scrap of good news in the heap of despair and suffering. But here's the good news, that Jesus is not afraid of our doubt. He doesn't withdraw when we question. He draws closer. Like he did with Thomas, he meets us in our uncertainty and invites us to see him more clearly in our lives and in the world around us. After appearing to Thomas, Jesus turns to all of us across the centuries and says, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe." That's us. We are blessed because we get to search for ways to believe in a resurrected Christ in a world that is just as broken as it was 2,000 years ago. Last week, and each time we welcome newly baptized members by remembering our own baptismal covenant, we promise once again to seek and serve Christ in all people. And doubt keeps us seeking. We get to keep asking questions like, where is God in all of this? How can there be hope even now in a world full of war and fear and death? And expressing these questions is not something that is shameful, because through asking these questions, we, like Thomas, open ourselves up to the possibility that we may find an unexpected answer sometime along the way. So today, let's not hide our doubts. Let's be a church that welcomes the honest questions, that makes room for seekers. Let's continue to be a people who make space for other humans to be humans. The story of Thomas was included in the Bible for us, for the doubters, the seekers, and the ones who want to believe. Amen.